who is going to be watching the YouTube side of this. I am just going to call in on the phone here. Phone. There it is. All right. Put that on speaker.
Welcome to Ready Access by Level 3 Communications. Please enter your access code, followed by the pound sign.
This evening session 455. Oops, 4. Can I go back?
That entry is not valid. Please enter your access code, followed by the pound sign. Thank you. Please stand by. If you are the chairperson, press the star key now.
Yeah.
Your conference will begin when the chairperson arrives. Please wait.
Oh, that's okay. But can you hear me? I guess is the bigger one. What's the conference code, Maureen? They were having a board meeting beforehand. Okay, I know you can only have my face, but anyways, I'm going to go back into here, cabinet.
You will now be placed into conference.
Oh, okay, there it is. I'm in the right place now?
Hello?
Hi, it's Rob.
Hello? Hi.
Hi, it's Rob.
This is Rob Rutledge call?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, good. Great. Fantastic.
So it sounds like we have quite a few people on the call from what I just heard.
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'll give a quick introduction of myself and a few housekeeping items before we get started. So my name is Tanya Hesser. I'm a social worker and one of the facilitators for this peer support line. Normally I'd maybe give it a few more minutes to have people call in, but it sounds like we do have quite a few people on the line already, so we'll probably get started.
Great.
I know we have a little bit of a longer presentation than we normally have on the call tonight, so Dr. Rutledge, it sounds like it's going to be maybe 40 or 50 minutes or so.
Yep. Hopefully people can ask questions as we go, and it'll make it more interesting, maybe a bit longer than average.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, so yeah, if anybody has questions as we go along, then it sounds like it's great to just chime in throughout the presentation rather than saving them to the end.
Okay, please, yeah.
Okay, great. So just a few housekeeping item confidentiality and sensitivity. So what is shared on these calls is confidential in terms of personal information. So please don't share any personal or identifying information with others. Also, we want to make sure this is a time and space when people will share their thoughts and feelings. So we'll try and make sure that we're respecting each other's experiences. Today on the call we have Dr. Rob Rutledge. He is going to be presenting on how understanding your brain can empower your life. So before we get started, presentations of the Melanoma Network. The first is that we have a patient education session coming up on January 24th, 2015. That's going going to be in Toronto. So you can sign up for this on the Melanoma Network website. It's just www.melanomanetwork.ca. This event provides patients, families, friends, and healthcare providers with all sorts of information and updates on like the latest stuff in terms of treatment therapies and support resources related to melanoma. They're also free of charge and really, really interesting. So I really recommend going to one of these if you haven't already. They have a few throughout the year, so more dates will be announced soon. Just make sure you check back on the website for further details. Also, just in terms of upcoming teleconference topics, next month's call is on February 25th. That's going to be on diet and nutrition. And the following call on March 25th is going to be on living with metastatic disease. So some really interesting topics coming up. We'd also love to get any feedback any of you guys have on future sessions and topics that we can explore. If you have any feedback for us or ideas for it, feel free to email Diane. She's the one that sends us a conference call reminder. Harty, HARTY, at melanomanetwork.ca. Or you can also stay on the call at the end of our discussion today, and feel free to pass them along to me at that point in time. So in terms of our presentation today, Dr. Rutledge is going to be presenting how understanding your brain can empower your life. Recent brain science shows that we can change the structure and functioning of our brains in a positive way through simple daily habits like practicing relaxation and taking in the good. Dr. Rutledge is an oncologist and support group leader, and he's going to extend these teachings to people affected by melanoma and focus on ways to calm yourself in stressful situations, reframe distressing thoughts and emotions, and live your life in a more calm, caring, and connected way. Just another reminder, if you guys didn't notice on the email that Diane sent, that you can watch the presentation. There's a presentation on Dr. Rutledge's website. You can follow along with the call. It's healingandcancer.org. And with that being said, Dr. Rutledge, I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here and to present with people who are so proactive in their lives, and I just want to honor people for doing that. And the fact is, you can make a difference, and because there's new neuroscience that shows you think, how you feel, your perceptions actually influence how your brain grows and ultimately how you feel. And I want to kind of address probably three main questions that people who've had a melanoma diagnosis contemplate, and for most people who've had a cancer diagnosis contemplate. So one is, people want to know, how can they maximize their chance of recovery, right? So what do you need to do to kind of maximize your cure rate or your survival rate and so on? The second big issue is, how can you feel stronger? How can you be stronger within your body? How can you feel better emotionally? Because cancer and a melanoma diagnosis can be very stressful, and people have those difficult feelings, and their physical body may not be as strong. So I want to kind of give you some ideas as to what you can do to empower yourself, kind of body, mind, and spirit. And lastly, really, this whole next phase that I'm working on, this idea of how to get your brain to work better, so you can think more clearly and function better within your life. And so I just want to say those are the kind of three prongs, and it all actually comes together in what I call complete melanoma care. And so I want people to go away, after this next 50 minutes, 60 minutes, feeling, yes, these are the concrete things, these are the scientifically proven things that can make a difference. So just to say, you can watch some of this presentation. You can definitely see me talking if you go to the website right now, healing and like AND cancer.org, and just you go there, you see the main page, and then there's this kind of YouTube video smack dab in the middle. Go there and press the play button, and then you'll actually see this. And I'll try to share some of the screen capture shots here as well. But for those who are just on the telephone as well, I'll just make it pertinent.
You can watch some of this presentation.
Oops. Yes. you can definitely see me talking. So you're not necessarily listening to a telephone, but you can just go to the website, press the little button on the almost like a little television screen in the middle of my website, and you actually see me talking. You can listen to me that way. So it's kind of a webcast and a telephone conference call all in one go. So given that idea of kind of complete melanoma care, I want to go through some skills as well. I want to think about stress and relaxation, and why meditation or practicing that type of relaxation technique can actually make you feel better. I want to talk about how our thoughts can influence our emotions and how we can work with those thoughts in a more proactive way. And then I'm also happy to share a technique called taking in the good, which is essentially those little moments in life where we have a really good experience, a moment of gratitude, of feeling determined or peaceful, how we can change those kind of fleeting moments, those fleeting states, into something that our brain absorbs and allows us to experience more often, actually kind of strengthens us from the inside. So I want to work on that one as well. I want to start out with this idea of intention, because oftentimes in life we kind of get pulled this way and that, and we kind of forget what's most important. You can kind of get distracted. And I watched a YouTube video of two corporate trainers. Their names were Foster and Hicks. And they were very successful in the corporate world, but they were quite interested in what made people happy. And so they ultimately wrote a book called 9 Choices of Extremely Happy People. And what they did is they went out into the world, like dozens and dozens and dozens of countries in all 6 continents. They would go into some village and they would ask somebody, who's the happiest person here? And they would, somebody would say, well, it's, Aunt Jeannie over there. She's amazing. She's so happy all the time. And so then they would go over to Aunt Jeannie's house and knock on the door, and inevitably they would get invited in and served tea, and they were interviewing all these extremely happy people. And their assumption was that it would differ according to the part of the world or the culture, et cetera, et cetera. But what they ultimately found out, it was very, very similar. Their perceptions, how they deal with the difficulties in their life. And a lot of these, there was a woman who was, a prisoner of war. She had forgiven the people who were extremely cruel to her. There's also, it's not that they had easy lives and were extremely happy. They had full lives, but they somehow were able to look at the world and perceive the world and to be in the world in a way that really empowered themselves and made themselves feel better. And so there's these kind of 9 characteristics of extremely happy people. And so the first thing, and the reason why I'm sharing that particular story, is the first thing is the people who are very happy set an intention. It's usually something they would do maybe like first thing in the morning. They first wake up, set their feet on the floor at the side of the bed, and say a prayer, or say, let me be a service, or how can I bring my personality, my spirit in the world? How can I serve others? How can I just decide that I'm going to live my life in a way that really makes a difference and is happy and is useful and serves a bigger perspective. So they, in some sense, they commit to being happy. And I'm going to run through this list of the other attributes, and I'm going to say them fairly quickly. And what I'm going to say partly is that these are also very similar attributes of people who have done extremely well from a kind of medical perspective. I became interested in all this in the mid-1980s when I read a book called Love, Medicine, and Miracles by Bernie Siegel. And he was a cancer surgeon and a pioneer in support groups. And he had noticed that there were certain attributes to people who did extremely well. They no longer worried about whether their cancer would come back. They didn't see death as a failure. They just kind of had this way of being, and they oftentimes outlived their doctor's predictions. They had spontaneous remissions. They got through their treatments extremely well. And so there's this kind of personality trait that's probably been borne out through the scientific studies over the years as well. But I also just want to say that it's not just us and them. I think we all have that capacity to actually empower ourselves. And I'd say also within the melanoma world, that there is, at least for a certain percentage of people affected by melanoma, that there is an influence of the immune system on the actual melanoma cells. And I guess I gave a talk to this group about a year ago, and I was doing a little bit of research about spontaneous remission and melanoma, and I came across this article that was, I think, published in 1976 out of Philadelphia of a young fellow there who ultimately became a surgeon in Halifax, where I work. Audley Badertha was his name. But essentially, they documented this scenario where this guy's melanoma had spread to multiple spots within the skin, and it was looking bad. And then suddenly he had kind of gone through this remission without treatment and had kind of recovered there. So especially, I think, within the melanoma world, that there is a certain percentage of people that can actually influence the cell growth. And by kind of empowering yourself, by adopting these attitudes, by taking care of your body, by working with the stress and difficult thoughts and so on, you actually allow your immune function to work better. So there's that kind of hope from that perspective, that you can actually make a difference from a physical perspective as well. So anyways, back to this this issue of the 9 choices of extremely happy people. So the other ones were accountability. So they felt that they were responsible for their own lives. So they didn't kind of refuse. They refused to blame others, and they just said, "This is my life. How am I going to approach this? My reaction, my response to the situations out there is in my control." So that's definitely an accountability. What I call autonomy, which is listening to your own intuition and listening to your own heart, because you have that capacity to know what's best for you. The other one was identification, was this idea that you identify with what makes you happy, what gives you bliss, and not being told by what others tell you about it.
Hi, sorry, it's Carol Ann.
Hey, Carol Ann. I'm just, it's Dr. Riley here. I'm just starting a talk here, talking about remarkable cancer survivors. And one of the other attributes that they have is they recast the stressful situations into something meaningful and important. And that was actually very similar to what Bernie Siegel said when I read his book, Love, Medicine, and Miracles in the 1980s, was that he said his exceptional cancer patients could see the cancer diagnosis as a catalyst for their own growth. It's an opportunity, not to say it's easy or that you would wish it on anybody, or cancer's a gift or anything like that. It's just like, this is what's happening. How can I make the best of this situation? The other ones are options. People are open to new options. And the last one, which is very important to me, you can actually pause and be truly grateful for what's happening right now, for this breath, for the relationships in your lives, for the experiences you had. And those little moments of gratitude can build up throughout the day. So anyway, so those are the choices of extremely happy cancer survivors. And I say all that as a big introduction to this idea now that we should actually spend a few moments going through a relaxation exercise together. So no matter where you are, you can actually do this. And part of that is setting intention, making sure you're clear about what you really want and how you want to be in the world. So so you can set down your stuff. If you have anything in your hands, you can set it down. And if you're sitting, you can come off the back of your chair and put your feet flat on the ground. I'm just doing that as I speak here. And I want to find that spot, your hands on your knees. And I want to find that spot where your spine is nice and straight but comfortable, and that you're relaxed, that your body is being held by your spine without actually much effort there. And just that feeling that the top of the head is being drawn towards the sky. Now bring your attention into the physicality of your body. What does it feel like? Become very curious now, like seeing it for the first time. What does it feel like to have your feet connected with the floor, connected with the earth? What's the feeling of the hands on the knees and thighs? What does it feel like to have the weight of the body in the chair? Be very curious. You might even notice kind of like an energy within your body, kind of like a life force feeling. Now bring your attention to your spine. Just bring that feeling of strength, of being solid, being strong within your spine. Now bring your attention to the front of your chest and just have that feeling of warmth, of softness, of vulnerability, of true heart. And so you can feel yourself with the strength of your backbone and the warmth of your heart. And now on the next breath, imagine breathing in a sense of warmth, a sense of peace, a sense of calm. And on the out breath, relax and release. Again, just whenever you're breathing in, just continue that exercise, breathing in that sense of calm and peace, and that kind of loving energy. And then the out breath, release, relax, let go. Now imagine that your heart is beginning to warm. So the middle of your chest is warming with a sense of loving kindness, sense of caring, sense of peace, sense of compassion. And if you need to, you can bring to mind a loved one, little child, somebody in your life you really love. Just imagine that you could warm your heart. And that sense of peace and calm is beginning to wash over your body and warm your body and heal in some sense. That sense of radiance, that sense of peace. Now imagine that you could extend that loving kindness to somebody in your life who needs healing in some way or form. So just from your heart, imagine that person that you're extending that golden warmth, that golden energy towards that person. Let them find healing in whatever way is best for them, whether level of body, mind, or spirit. Just really care for them. Maybe it's someone who's very close to you, or someone, your family, your friends, someone you know from the cancer world. Extend that sense of calm and peace to everybody who's on the phone call now. They're different lights, different wonderful characters across Canada. Just send that loving kindness to everybody who's listening in right now. And extend it again to everyone who's had a cancer diagnosis and a melanoma diagnosis here in Canada and then beyond into the world. Anybody who's suffering now, send that sense of love and kindness, that universal heart energy, just to anybody, anywhere who needs it. Now release that. Just allow your mind to come back into your body, that sense of centering, connection with the floor and the earth, connection with your breath. And then on the next out breath, just allow your mind to expand, let go. Ding. Okay, thank you. Thanks for Thanks for going along with that. You know, that was what, maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and you would have had, you know, probably 95% of people would have had a physiological response to simply coming back to remembering that sense of peace, that sense of love. You can even set an intention for yourself doing that. Like, what do I want to learn from this lecture now? How do I want to be in this world? In fact, setting an intention, you're going into a medical appointment, you could say to yourself, you know, I intend to be clear of mind and to be calm and to have, you know, advocate for myself when it's appropriate and, you know, really get the best care. I'm the most important person in the room there. So you can actually set an intention for yourself. How do you want to be going into that appointment? You know, as opposed to flustered and not being able to concentrate and so on. So you can actually kind of warm yourself up towards that feeling of getting the best care for yourself, you know, having that attitude, I'm going to do what I need to do to get the best care in this circumstance. So any, you know, going into a meeting, going, you know, going out to hang out with in-laws, you know, it could be really any scenario. You're deciding, how do I want to be in this world? And if we can do that more consciously, then we develop the strengths that we want to grow within our brain. So whether it's a sense of confidence, a sense of peace, a sense of resilience, sense of joy, sense of gratitude, whatever you want to develop, if you practice that, if you see the moments where you experience that and hold on to it longer, you actually get better at it. It's actually a clear physiological change that happens within your brain as you practice. And that's, for me, it's exciting things. You actually make a difference in your life. So this is no longer kind of new agey stuff. This is kind of proven from a kind of scientific perspective that what you practice within your kind of emotional world, within your thought world, your brain will get better and better at doing. So I want to put this all now within the context of, how do you get complete melanoma care? And just going to adjust one little button here, because for those who are kind of watching, I want you to be able to see what I'm showing here if I can. Okay, and there, yeah. So for those who can watch the website, I've actually put up some slides here as well. So what is complete melanoma care? And this whole lecture is going to be recorded. So it's not like you're going to miss out on this, and you can watch the YouTube video afterwards. So the first step is to understand what's happening. From the biggest perspective, understand what melanoma is, understand what the treatments are, just get the biggest perspective, learn to speak the language, kind of like Carol Shields, who had advanced breast cancer, wrote, she said, getting a cancer diagnosis is like waking up in the middle of the night, in a rainy night, in a train, traveling in a distant land where everybody else speaks a different language. And I think partly she was describing this language of the medical system and how complicated it is. I also want to say it's actually an exciting time, I think, in melanoma, because we're in the midst of a molecular revolution. It means that more and more there's going to be targeted therapies, that the actual cancer treatments are going to actually go and find the melanoma cells as distinct and different than the normal cells. And more, you know, we're going to have better responses to therapy and less side effects from treatments as well. So that's, to me, is exciting there. So that's the big level, and that's why you come and listen to a talk like this, is to empower at that kind of biggest level. The second level of healing and getting the best melanoma care possible is advocating for yourself and getting the best care from the medical system. Now, that's probably about a 30-minute talk by itself, but essentially you come prepared, you have your questions written down, you advocate for yourself, you know, both within the appointment and afterwards, and you learn how the system works, and you try to figure out, how can I get the best care possible? And that a skill that you develop with time. And if you don't want to be the kind of expert in your care, then what I would say is at least have a loved one play that role of kind of understanding and being able to talk the talk of the medical system. So that's the second level of care. The third level is empowerment at the level of the body. And so these are the healthy habits that you probably have heard about, and we'll kind of go over again tonight. And I'm trying to argue with you why you really need to take care of yourself, because you actually do influence your physiology in a big way. And so exercise, it's the diet stuff, and we'll go over some of that. Maintaining a reasonable weight, promoting sleep, and then practicing relaxation, which kind of overlaps with the level of the mind. And level of mind, we'll get into some specific techniques as well. So, okay, so now often we talk about the mind-body connection, and I'm trying to empower you, and it's not, so it is maximize your chance of cure. 2 is to function better emotionally and physically. And number 3 is to have your brain function better. Now, there's actually overlap in terms of the advice that I'm going to give you. If you follow what I'm saying, then you'll actually be able to influence all 3 of those, at least the second and third one. And the first one is this idea of the mind-body connection, but it actually reverses itself as well, because the nervous system is not just in your brain. The nervous system is actually this connection of the nervous tissue between what's in your skull and what's in the rest of your body. And there's lots of kind of nervous tissue, nervous cells around your gut and around your heart. So when you're listening to your intuition, listening to your heart, you're actually tapping into the nervous system itself. And that's why, to me, it's very important to take care of your body. You know, when you eat something that your body just doesn't like and doesn't respond to, you'll have that Big Mac from McDonald's, then it's going to distress your gut and the nervous system within your gut, and that will feed back up into your brain, and you won't feel as well emotionally or physically. And so that's why to understand your body and what makes your particular body work well is very empowering, because it's the body-mind connection. And the other good example around that one is a lot of us suffer from insomnia. So we're up in the middle of the night and those thoughts are going 1,000 miles per hour. And so what can you do? And so what I do is actually practice a relaxation technique. I stay in the dark at that point in time. I do a little breathing on the spot, try to focus on the breath, and so on. And so I'm actually physically relaxing the muscles in my body, and that will then have an influence to settle the mind. So it's the body-mind connection again. Okay. So for those who are watching, my grandmother lived to 110. She was amazing. She raised 6 kids during the 30s in the prairies, moved out to the West Coast, Victoria, the last X number of years of her life. She was so well at age 100, they kicked her off the nursing home list because she was too good. She lived in her own place till 107. She was writing poetry till her last year. And one of the things, I mean, she was very, very sharp, and she kept her mind all those years. And so you've probably heard that, that if your mind stays active, then your brain will work better with time. And that's true, but you know what actually trumps that one? It's the point of this whole story, is that exercise is the #1 thing that you can do to make your brain work better. It's as simple as that. When you exercise, you actually release a chemical within your brain called brain-derived growth factor, neurotrophic factor, which allows those new cells to actually grow and allows the memories to be set down. So about 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said you grow new brain cells within your lifetime, but actually the science is now showing there's a part of the brain called the hippocampus that actually grows new cells. And so you can remember better and function better if and when you exercise. So that's the story around that one. It's exercise extremely important and feeling better, releasing the happy hormones, getting a better night's sleep, improving your mood. And there's several cancers as well. I mean, there's less data around melanoma. Several cancers that show that exercise actually improves the outcome. Like people alive versus dead 10 years later, if they're exercising, getting that 30 minutes a day, 6 days a week, getting the heart rate up, a little bit of sweat on the chin, you know, that type of feeling. If they do that, they actually improve their longevity. And there's about 5, 10, 15 reasons why you should continue to exercise. So how much and what are the tricks? I mean, the other one is, what are the tricks to get yourself to exercise? And I think what I'm hearing right now is one of this is the social issue. So not only do you have a workout buddy, but if you can create kind of like a contract between yourself and somebody else, you say, if I do the 5-kilometer run, you know, these 4 times per week, then you have to do your 5-kilometer run 4 times a week. And so you almost feel like you're letting down the other person if you don't do your walk. And so some of these tricks actually improve the likelihood that you actually get out there and do it. But you want to do something that's fun, do varied things, set goals. You know, let's see, can I work myself up to a 5-kilometer run after 5 months of training? Can I go in that 5-kilometer race? So lots of ways. And I would say no matter what you do, go and talk to an expert. So if the for me, I gave you kind of the 5 levels of healing. So the information expert would be a librarian, or the Melanoma Network often has those type of information packages that can really help people. So you go to the expert around exercise, you go to the expert around diet, information, and if you're having particular problems like brain fog or those type of issues, then you go ask for an expert. Or maybe your energy's down. Is there an occupational therapist who can help you with the circumstance? So always go to, so you're going to go to your family doctor, find out how much exercise you should be doing, or at least get the go ahead. And you might even go to a personal trainer and really take care of yourself. The other one is, it actually, to my mind, it actually sends a very clear signal from your spirit to your mind to your body about healing and wholeness when you take that proactive step. So when you're kind of frustrated and irritated and angry and upset with your circumstance, you channel that energy into something that can empower yourself. So you're focusing your energy forwards. And yes, you want to start out slowly. Yes, you want to listen to your body, but slowly, you're gaining perspective and gaining direction. Okay, so the next one is nutrition. And think about it, your cancer cells grew in a certain kind of soup. And so in some sense, you want to try to make the soup as healthy as possible. And they're the molecules outside of the cancer cells that are influencing the cancer cells themselves. So it's called epigenetics. So kind of cool that you can influence that. And there's also this idea of antioxidants, which is your kind of mopping up the damaging chemicals in your body so you don't cause more damage. You don't want slow-growing cancer cells or melanoma cells to turn into fast-growing cells, right? So you don't want that same process that caused the diagnosis to make things worse with time. Okay, so next, maintaining a reasonable weight is, it's a complex process. But if you think about, and there's this 5-2-1-0 algorithm, which is 5 servings of vegetables per day, right? So you get in the good, healthy stuff first before you put in the calories. There's the limit your television time to less than 2 hours, or your screen time to less than 2 hours. I mean, yes, and a lot of us are working on computer screens, but don't go home and spend 5 more hours watching TV or the computer. Do something that allows your body to be more active. The 1 is an hour of exercise per day, and the 0 is 0 calories from sugary drinks. like pop or fruit juice. So here, that's an idea around what you might do to make a difference with your weight, and go to a professional and be kind to yourself. Okay, I'm flashing a slide here around sleep, and so this idea of something called sleep hygiene, which is, I mean, you can't force yourself to get a good night's sleep, but you can create the conditions in which you're more likely to sleep. And so think of it from a kind of evolutionary perspective. The evolutionary perspective is that we essentially were animals that did the majority of our work during the day, and then as nightfall came, our physiology slowed down and we would go to sleep. And so we want to kind of reproduce those type of rhythms. And one of the rhythms is for the lights to get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer as the evening goes on. The other one is not to have bright lights during the night, because even 90 seconds of bright light can suppress the hormones that are in your brain from kind of healing the tissue. So, for instance, that 90 seconds of bright light will stop the melatonin from going into the body. And we know that melatonin has kind of anti-cancer effect. And it's not as simple, it's just melatonin. But anyway, so that's the idea, is that you want to do that. So red light, or wearing your eye patches, or doing the blind person's walk to the bathroom in the night, those are the type of strategies that you want to use. The other one I would say around this is there's now some good data that says that taking a nap, napping, like a short nap, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, again, it's a skill that you can develop. I happen to be an expert at that one, don't tell my boss. The 10-minute nap where you get a little bit of that REM sleep actually changes the physiology within your brain and within your body itself. And so people who have had a nap, not only do they remember better after their nap, not only can they learn new physical skills, not only does it help with all sorts of hormonal therapy, sort of hormonal systems within their body, like diabetes, hypertension, all that stuff, it actually allows them to get a better night's sleep if they nap. And the next morning, they actually have a better feeling of restfulness if on the previous day they got that 10-minute nap. So the data is now coming out around sleep, and I highly recommend, again, becoming an expert in something that you can control, actually allow you to feel better, which allows you to do the things that you love to do, that you want to do with your life. So,
Dr. Melich?
Yes.
Sorry, don't mean to interrupt. It's just Tanya here. I noticed that you mentioned slides were coming up, but I'm not seeing any on the video. I don't know if someone else is seeing the slides.
Okay. Maybe I don't have my share. Actually, you know what? I probably entire screen. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's. Sorry. Thank you. Now you're going to see all sorts of stuff flashing around.
Oh, okay.
There we go. So thank you. This is my first time using this technique. And for those who are watching, I just wanted to give a quick picture of my 110-year-old grandmother, who's anyways, she made it to 110, and she said she would dance on the tables, and she was a little too weak by 110, but she got these two large guys to bring her wheelchair up onto this large wooden table, and she had the audience sing stuff like, "I'm tired and I want to go home." Anyway, so she was quite the remarkable woman. So I'm bragging about my grandmother. So, okay, so just a few slides around that. Thank you so much for telling me. And sleep, and that's actually the last one that we don't do very much is this actual meditation. And relaxation, and actually changing the physiology. And so the power of practicing something regular is that it kind of resets the stress meter, because we can either be, we can actually be, I kind of put myself back to myself here. We can actually be quite upset, anxious, nervous, and kind of living this kind of sense of stress and disturbance. And the same things are happening, but we're in this kind of nervous state, and we're shaking, and we're upset. And what happens if you actually practice some type of relaxation? It's as if the relaxation response is coming right into your life. The difficult things are still happening, but you get to choose what you want to do, because 99.9% of the time you don't have to jump and snatch the child from under the car, or do something dramatic thing. You actually have time to reflect and decide, how do I want to approach the circumstance? And so by actually practicing that, it makes a huge difference. So I highly recommend, again, talking to an expert about learning a skill that can actually make you feel better and improve your mood, your concentration, your abilities, and just how you feel overall. So there's a lot of data around that. I want to share my screen again here for those who are watching. I don't think it's going to be a real distraction for those who aren't. But I just wanted to introduce the idea that I did read this amazing book, a couple books actually. One is called Buddha's Brain, and the other one's called Hardwiring Happiness. It's written by Rick Hanson, and the great thing about his writing is that it's quite clear and it's scientifically based. And so that's what I've been trying to share with these talks. And he's a neuroscientist and a therapist and an amazing speaker. So I'm kind of going to share you some of his information to make it more real, that your brain is influenced by what you do and how you perceive the world, and that you'll continue to sculpt your brain according to what you practice. So, and it's based essentially on this evolutionary theory, and that is that, if the universe is 13 billion years old, life on Earth came in at about 3.5 billion years ago, and slowly the cells evolved to the point that there were multi-celled organisms about 650 million years ago. And it took them about 50 million years further for a nervous system, because if the cells got big enough where there need to be a sensing aspect of the organism to a motor or a movement aspect of the organism, then there had to be a nervous system to kind of connect the two together. So that continued to evolve through the animals and primates. And about 2.5 million years ago, our ancestors were actually making tools. So their brains were complex enough, they could actually make stone tools. And at that point, their brains were about a third of the size of what our brains are today. And in the growth that we've had around that is really this kind of front part of the brain that's more complicated and has more to do with social connections and planning and creativity and so on. And so we're very much wired from that perspective. And we spent hundreds of thousands, well, at least 100,000 years living as tribes of 100 to 150. And so we as a species are very connected with our own tribe. And it had two implications. One, it took kind of village to raise a child, so we're connected with each other. But also there was kind of tribal warfare, so that's the kind of us versus them perspective. So we have both those kind of elements within our psyches, that we've developed over the millennia. So I'd also say that for those of you who have blue or green eyes, you are mutants, because only 6,000 years ago there was nobody with blue or green eyes, and then there was, I guess, one person in the Denmark region that had this mutation, which would be your ancestor if you have it, and that person was very popular, and that kind of proliferated throughout the world itself. So the evolutionary process continues, and by kind of understanding how evolution works and how your brain works, you can actually tap into those systems so you can feel better and understand why you feel scared and so on. So So there's the levels of your brain, essentially, and you would have probably heard this already. So the most primitive aspect of the brain is called the reptilian brain, which is essentially withdraws when it gets scared. Whenever there's danger, that's kind of a fight or flight reaction to get out of the scenario. The next level is more of the kind of early mammalian system, what they call the limbic system, which is kind of an emotional system, where it's more like the approach aspect. You're seeing approaching towards food and opportunity, approaching towards mating and kind of opportunities on that side. So that's kind of an emotional level that we still contain within our psyche and systems. And then the last level, the most recent part of the evolution, is the newer mammals, so the chimpanzees, and then ultimately down to the humans themselves, with this kind of much higher level of function. And the higher parts of the brain can suppress or dampen down the lower parts of the brain, but all three levels use the other levels for their own purposes. So there's the three motivational systems that I've been talking about. So you're avoiding the harms at a kind of very basic level. You're approaching rewards, and then you're attaching. It's bonding, empathy, planning groups, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I share all that partly because it explains why we can feel stressed, why we can feel upset. That kind of jittery, sudden, scared feeling, that can be triggered in different ways. And so to understand that is a first step. The one is, if you're about to fall off a cliff or you're about to get hit by a runaway car, you will have the primitive reptilian response, which is that kind of fight or flight, and you get extremely strong and quick at that moment. So that's what it was really intended for. But then the next level is that we as humans can proceed as to what might happen to us. You're flying in a plane and there's turbulence, and then you get the stress reaction because you think, well, I might, this plane might crash, or I'm worried about what that CAT scan might show because that might show that the cancer is spread. And so you can get a stress reaction off of a hypothetical situation. The next level of stress has to do with kind of the ego system. If you're in your tribe and you're ostracized by, if you're pushed out of the group, then that essentially is a death sentence. And so we are very primed to be aware of how we're perceived by others. So that's kind of a social ego threat to us. So you get into an argument and, with your spouse, maybe over housework or something like that, and we get a stress reaction because we're thinking, at some kind of primitive level, oh, I could be wrong, am I right? Am I part of the group? Am I following the rules? And so it's kind of trying to defend yourself from kind of a social perspective, gives you the stress reaction. And then the last one is that it's just normal to have the fear of the unknown, right? So we're human, and when we get into this circumstance where we don't know what's going to happen in the future, we automatically have this, I need to figure it out feeling. I need to know what's going to happen. I need to plan around that. And through evolution, that protected our ancestors. The ones that were more anxious like that took more steps and were more likely to survive the attack by the other tribe, or a drought, or those type of things. So we're wired in some sense to be anxious. We call it the nervous system for a reason, right? Because we're kind of nervous. But first of all, it's just to recognize, just to be able to see that, to see what's happening is empowering. I'm feeling anxious. It's normal to feel anxious in this circumstance. But you know what? I can actually settle myself down. So then you're using the wiser part of your brain to settle down the more primitive stress reaction. So fear of the unknown also causes that same stress reaction. Now, the stressor is the thing that causes you to feel that flustered feeling. It goes through a perception. The tiger behind the bars in a cage is different than walking through the Siberia and running into the real thing. And then there's that kind of reaction around it. And so as you're sitting here listening to this, I want you to think about what you experience through a stress reaction, right? Because without the consciousness, without the understanding, it's really hard to settle yourself down. And so I mean, I have the slide for those who are watching up here. That what are your triggers? What are the situations? Is it the angry boss? Is it the medical situation? Is it the, so you can see and start to work on some of the underlying core beliefs around that. So that's the kind of trigger. But really what's even more important is to understand how your body manifests that kind of fight or flight feeling. How is it that you feel it within your body? Like, do you get that kind of shorter breath, pounding heart, tension, kind of the tension within the muscles, which comes out as kind of jittering, or it could be pain, could be headache, could be dry mouth, could be diarrhea, could be sweaty palms, could be, feeling nauseated. There could be like 15, 20 things that people can experience. And it might just be one thing that tells you, I'm feeling short of breath here. I'm feeling stressed. Without that kind of recognition, you can't settle it. So to recognize what's unique to you, and to recognize, and I'm also asking you, what are your emotional feelings? Do you get angry? Do you see red? Do you get flustered? Do you feel like crying? And sometimes that's the cue. Sometimes it's you're thinking, geez, I can't think clearly. I'm just kind of zombied, or I'm very concrete, or I'm hearing swearing in my head, or I'm starting to, call people names, or, I'm starting to blame myself for the situation. Any of those can be the cue to say, oh, I'm flustered, I'm upset. There's something wrong here. So when that happens, I'm going to take you through a very simple technique around kind of settling yourself down. So as a short term, I'm seeing myself as flustered, upset, stressed. How do I get myself back to being calm? Because when you're calmer, you can make a better decision, essentially. So as soon as you see that kind of fluster, as soon as you see whatever it is, that body or the emotion or the thought, press the pause button on your life. 99.9% of the time, you don't need to jump now. You can just press the pause button and get very curious. As soon as you're curious, it's a different part of your brain that actually starts to process. And you're getting yourself away from the reptilian part of your brain and up into the higher cortex. So you get very curious. What are the physical sensations that are happening with my body? What's the breathing like? So you're focusing internally on the physiology. And then it's 4 slow breaths into the abdomen. It's not up into your chest, it's into the deep abdomen. That triggers the vagus nerve, which is the nerve that goes to the diaphragm, which separates your gut from your lungs. And the vagus nerve goes up into the brain and says to the brain, it's okay, I can relax now. And so 4 slow breaths. You can even do it with me now as you're contemplating this. 4 slow breaths, settles down your mind. And then you can use the higher part of your brain, which is essentially that part of your brain that says, look, you're okay right now. You can you can get through this. You've been through difficult situations before. Let's take one step at a time. Whatever it is that's that kind of wise, kind, reassuring part of your brain to kind of talk you through this. I don't need to get upset right now. I can concentrate on what the doctor is saying and try to figure this out and make the best of it, or whatever it is that you're in the situation of. So that's a kind of a technique around pressing the pause button there. So I'm just going to, for time's sakes, I'm just going to kind of get down to the last kind of technique, because we're kind of coming to the end of the hour, and that is taking in the good. Because so there's 2 things. I'll take you through this separate, just give you the little taste of what they call cognitive therapy, or another way to say that is reframing your thoughts. So if a thought comes up, it's a distressing thought, that's an unnecessary thought, how do you work with that thought? And so I'll take you through an example. It's probably the easiest way to explain how reframing works. I mean, there's a whole books on this, and you can get that through, you know, a social worker, psychologist at the cancer center, or, you know, personally, and it really helps people reframe and to feel better. And so, usually what happens in the world is that there's a situation which is just kind of the facts of what's happening, and then we add to the situation our thoughts or perceptions of it. And there's more than one way to kind of look at a situation. And if you can't believe that your thoughts about a situation could actually differ from the situation, then you won't get this exercise. You have to kind of take that first major step, that our thoughts are a little bit crazy sometimes and they don't actually reflect reality. And so that's just the norm. And, you know, if you actually type down, if you actually had a computer that could type down your every thought and have that kind of printout, you would read that printout at the end of the day. It'd be huge numbers of, you know, pages and pages and pages, and you actually see yourself contradicting yourself at times, or saying silly things or things that aren't quite right, and so on. And that's just normal, accurate. That's just how it is. But if you can take that a step further and say, there are some thoughts that I've kind of come to believe that actually aren't helping me, and I can actually change those thoughts, then you can actually feel better and still see the situation as realistic, but you kind of come at it from a more wise and compassionate perspective. So the idea is to see the situation and then see your thoughts of the situation and how what your thoughts are doing, and then work with that. And I'll take you through the scenario. So imagine that somebody is in the midst of chemotherapy and they're going for cure, and they're really tired. They're tired physically, they're raw emotionally. So I haven't said anything judgmental from that description. If they could, and then, okay, so then they think to themselves, it's no use, I don't have the strength to get through this, right? So they take a difficult situation and they've added an extra judgment about the situation. And that judgment comes in the form of a thought. And then if you actually look at that thought, kind of in the second column, what emotions would follow that way of thinking? So if you said to yourself, I can't get through this, you know, it's no use, I can't do it. If you said that to yourself, then it would drag your emotions down. It would make your body more tired. It's not really helping you, right? So you're not making the situation better by thinking that. And then lastly, you kind of have to think about, what does it really mean? Like, what did I really say there? It's no use. Well, you actually start arguing through yourself, or like being like a lawyer. It's no use. Well, actually, it is use. We're you know, hopefully chemotherapy is making a difference here. I don't have the strength to get through this. Well, actually, you are getting through this. You know, you don't have to do everything at once. And so you start to say, well, that thought's a little bit kind of primitive or immature, and it's not quite right. And so then the last part of this is to be very kind to yourself. Kind of like, if your best friend said that to you, your best friend's going through chemo, they're tired, et cetera, and they say, it's no use, I don't have the strength to get through this. What would you say to them to help them? Like, and beyond being the kind of the practical stuff. And I would say it kind of comes out as probably three ways. One is you want to kind of acknowledge that it is difficult. Yeah, you know, you're difficult to decide. I might see that person who is to kind of change it in a certain way, you know, kind of like what I've said before, is say, well, actually, you are getting through this. Let's take it a day at a time. And the third one is something like that's more encouraging, like, you know, you've been through difficult situations before. You can, you know, we can take this a day at a time and get through this one as well. So there's that sense of encouragement there. And that is all happening within your brain. So when you have a thought that's adding more distress, you actually use a technique that allows you to see it from a bigger perspective, acknowledges the difficulties, and is also encouraging. And when the guy, Tim Walker, and I, who came up with this particular example, we came through a reframe, and we said, in that situation, you might even think to yourself, who says you always have to be strong? Sometimes to cry and fall apart is the best thing to do. Then it seems I find an inner strength or higher power. So that is a way to reframe that you show some kindness in a bigger perspective. So reframing or cognitive therapy or mindfulness-based cognitive therapy will change the kind of core beliefs that are causing you to look at the life in a kind of more negative way, and it changes it to a realistic but compassionate and wise perspective. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is this idea of taking in the good. The idea is that throughout the day, there are negative experiences that we have and positive experiences that we have. And through evolution, we're so primed to focus on the negative experience. Like, if you're hanging out with your spouse for a few days, usually you'd have 5 things that were positive that you did together, 4 things that were neutral, and then you'd have one little argument or something like that. And then just before you go to bed at night, you would focus on the one little argument and forget about all those other things. So that's called the negativity bias, that we learn from the negative experiences. We often forget the positive experiences. And so we're primed to do that. And this technique, the idea behind it is that you simply take in the truth. You kind of level the playing field to say, actually, there are positive things there. And when you realize it and when you're able to hold it within your mind, then it actually can change your brain structure for the better. So there's the negativity bias. And what I want to do is just actually take you through the technique as the last thing we'll do together tonight. The first step is to actually have a good experience. So I want you to think about what type of mood state or characteristic or something that you would like to kind of develop more of in your life. So it could be a sense of peace. It could be a sense of confidence, of strength. It could be gratitude. It could be, just a sense of feeling happy or joyful. Just whatever you think in your life that you'd like to have more of, that you'd like to feel stronger, to kind of build that kind of inner resilience. And so I want you to think about that now. Think about a scenario. Remember yourself in that situation when you last felt that characteristic. And I want you to hold on to that feeling. And I want you to remember what was happening in your life. Like, where were you? What were you looking at? What were you hearing? What was the scenario? Who were the people? Could have been by yourself even. And as you think about that, I want you to remember how your body felt, how you felt in your heart, how you felt in your mind. And as you experience that sense right now, I want you to believe and know that when you hold that experience, you're actually allowing it to absorb into your psyche, into the neurons and the chemistry of your brain, and into your heart. So allow that sense to absorb into your psyche. Good. Okay. And the last part of that is you can actually link that to, use that to work with difficult feelings as well. So that technique is called taking in the good. And the idea is that you can do that maybe 6 to 10 times per day. You can decide, when you're having that moment of gratitude, or you're having that moment of strength, or having that moment of peace or joy, you can stop and actually enrich it and allow the kind of brain systems to kind of hardwire that into your brain. But you need to stop and appreciate the experience for 10 or 20 seconds whenever that happens, for instance, 6 times per day. And the data, for instance, like writing a gratitude journal, the data is after about 3 weeks, the brain actually has a change in its ability to perceive those moments. So you get better and better at experiencing whatever it is, and then you as time you're actually growing the neurons in your brain that allow you to feel better in whichever way you're kind of directing yourself. So that's called self-directed neuroplasticity. So. Okay, so I think I'm going to conclude there. Very happy to answer questions around this. I'm sorry if I went a little bit over time, but it's obviously I'm a little bit passionate about these ideas. So thanks for your attention, everybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rutledge. That was really, really interesting. I have so many questions myself, but maybe I'll open up the floor to everybody else for any questions you all have. Maybe I'll start off with one of my questions to get the conversation going. I thought it was really interesting, some of the things that you had to say about mindfulness and relaxation. I really enjoyed the way that you started things off with the relaxation exercise. And I know that there's just so much attention in research and in supportive care, especially within oncology, focused on mindful meditation and that sort of thing.
Yep.
One thing that I know people struggle with is finding ways to work this into their busy schedule. So I don't know if you have any suggestions for ways that you can kind of incorporate even little bits of mindfulness, or how much is worth doing. Is 5 minutes enough? You have to sit down for half an hour, and when can you work it in?
Right. So it's such a good question. There was a young woman who came to one of our weekend retreats, and we taught mindfulness and meditation. And then we got to chat with her a few years later. In fact, she was actually appeared in our video. So we chatted with her 6 weeks afterwards. And she said that, practicing that sometimes as little as 10 seconds, she would come to a stoplight and, it was a red stoplight, and she'd have 10 or 15 seconds, and she would simply allow herself to look at the trees or look at the sky and just come to that state of peace and calm with whatever was as it was. So, those techniques, and even, what I'm talking about now, taking in the good, we're talking about 10 to 20 seconds of having a relaxation response and having it start to stick with time. Now, mind you, got to practice it, at least a half dozen times per day. More is better. So what I can say is that I usually get up. I've had some busy days in the last few days, but usually get up about half an hour earlier than I would otherwise, and go down and practice a very simple meditation technique. Simply bring my attention to my breathing. Within a few seconds of starting, my mind starts to wander. I'm thinking about what's happening in the future. We're going to do that day, and I bring my attention back. A few seconds after that, I'm thinking about what happened yesterday, the stupid thing I said at that meeting, blah, 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 blah. And then I bring my attention back, and it kind of back and forth dozens of times even. My mind's going out, I'm coming back, I'm breathing. I do experience a sense of peace. I am able to see kind of that chattering mind. It's kind of slowing down. It doesn't go away. But when I do that, when I actually practice meditation, I feel much better. I just feel more compassionate. I'm able to do one thing at a time. I'm more efficient. I'm more effective. And so it's just really been just very, very beneficial in my very, very busy life. And so I just highly recommend people at least try that. Even starting 3 or 4 minutes per day and then slowly building it up will actually build the structure. You don't have to be a perfect meditator. The mind will still wander. But just coming back to the here and now and becoming friends with yourself through meditation just really can make a difference. So.
And are there any resources that you would share? So I know some people kind of say, I hear the word meditation all the time, but I don't know exactly what that entails. So maybe doing something similar to what you did on the call today, or I don't know if you know of any other maybe online resources that people could listen to for a guided meditation.
Yeah, so thank you. I'll pay you the $10 later for that question. For those who can see it, there's our website, healingandcancer.org, and then you can go to the video section as a video link, and there's lots of little meditations there. You can actually watch a full weekend retreat, and at every section within the weekend retreat, we actually do a little meditation. So they're usually about 5 to 7 minutes long, and they're usually in the healing skills section of that. So there's lots of options around our website. It's all essentially for free. So, anyways, yeah.
I have not really a question, but a comment.
Sure.
My wife has 3 brain tumors, so she's basically in palliative care.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more of a advice, I guess, for other patients. What we found is that through the hospice, now I'm not sure if it's only through palliative or not, but through our local hospice, she qualified for a lot of kind of visits, and so they have the students doing Reiki. They have the students doing different things like Reiki and touch healing and those types of programs.
Yeah.
So it might be something that they could look into with their local hospice, and they seem to be quite good programs. My wife usually sleeps quite well after having the Reiki, and it is available to the caregivers as well. I haven't taken advantage of it, but I should. But I'd rather just make sure that she gets it rather than myself. I can do it myself later after she's gone.
Yeah.
So I found that there's quite a wealth of help out there for through the hospice, and also she used to listen to just go on a Reiki sort of website and listen to the music, and it's a relaxation music. And,
yes.
And there's some that are just the music, and some that are just the voice.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are lots of other kind of options, and then thank you so much for just pointing that there are other ways to kind of work with the energies and to settle oneself down. And I've actually done some Reiki and some healing touch and therapeutic touch in past, and so I know that it can actually make a difference in terms of quality of life, in terms of a relaxation response, in terms of feeling better. And I also feel that the family members of people who have a cancer diagnosis often have as much stress as those who actually have the diagnosis themselves. So we really need to take care of ourselves. And what I really like about your story as well, that you kind of advocated, you kind of asked, and you were willing to explore some of these things that we don't necessarily think about or do. But there's a lot of different little programs like that within the hospital system, within the cancer centers, within the hospice, and so when you try it, it can make a real difference. So bless you and your wife for being so proactive like that.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess it sounds like for those who can just contact us if you have a question, or you can send us an email at info@healingandcancer.org. Please visit our website. It's all free stuff, and we really appreciate your input. So thanks.
Thank you so much. Dr. Rutledge, are your slides from tonight's talk available on your website as well?
Yeah, I don't know if I put them up, but I am going to put up this YouTube video. Some of the slides you wouldn't have seen at the start, but you'll see me talking most of the time, and you'll be able to hear what I said. And the slides that I flashed through will also be there. So.
Great. Well, thank you again so much.
You're welcome.
This is a big one tonight.
Yeah. Long night. Thanks everyone for your patience.
No problem at all. And to everybody else, just a reminder again that next week's call, or next month's call is February 25th on diet and nutrition at the same time. And I think